normally record vertical and stuff like that, so I'm struggling with seeing these things because I haven't got glasses on. Dad would have been 86 today. 17th is January, his birthday, and it's just so odd because I can't ever imagine what he would be like at 86. I mean, he was cantankerous at times, but I mean, he was just a dad. And I was thinking today about, you know, the year 1994 when he died, and it's well, I don't want to. I hate using the word triggered because I don't want to upset anybody, but I'm going to tell you what, you know, bits and bobs what happened. So, in 1994, I was still living with my parents, and I should say that I had moved out of the house when I was 17. I came back when I was 21 to do my degree because I thought it would be cheaper to come back and do a degree at home, and then you don't have to pay, you know, things like accommodation and all that. It was before tuition fees as well came along. Anyway, so I was living with my parents, and it was towards the end of my degree in '94. And I remember my dad, it was New Year's Day, and he was struggling with his breathing. He had terrible asthma, and he'd been trying to contact the doctor all day, and they hadn't been getting back to him for whatever reason. Obviously, not many people on call on that day, and eventually I took him to hospital. I drove him, and as I was driving pretty quickly, I mean, the roads were so quiet, he was getting worse. You could tell he was really, really struggling. And I didn't want to panic him by driving so fast. Anyway, we got to the hospital, and I remember it being so quiet, A&E, and I'm thinking, and I mean, like now we just think of all the kerfuffle about, you know, waiting times and stuff like that, and now we just walked in. I managed to get him in, you know, half like carry him sort of thing, you know, over my shoulder. He got in, and I could hear him going to this. They took him into it like a resus thing, and I could hear him really complaining, really struggling, and it was so odd because everything went quiet. I don't remember anybody waiting around. It was just so odd. And I thought, oh well, he must have, you know, must have got, you know, oxygen into him or so whatever they do to get the asthma under control. And a doctor came out and they said, "Mr. Evans." I said, "Yes." So can I have a word? And I thought, okay. So she took me into a side room, shut the door. She said, "Look, what's happened is your dad, when he came in, he obviously went. Basically, he went into cardiac arrest. They brought him back, but what happened was that they had to cut his clothes off because everything just, obviously, when it happens. And they're taking him to intensive care." And I was like, okay, how do I deal with this? Because it was just like the day before seemed fine, you know, not too bad. But and I rang my mum, who you know, she'd been nursing for 30 years, and I thought she could understand that. And I explained, you know, the fact that they're going to take him up into intensive care, and she says, "You've got it wrong." I said, "I haven't." I said, it's a doctor that's told me that he's going to intensive care." No, you must have got it wrong. So I went to pick my mum up, bring her back to the hospital, and we couldn't see Dad for about 2 hours until they stabilised him. And it was only when we were walking, and I took her up, because this is a hospital that she used to work in, into intensive care. And she went, "Oh, it is." I said, "Well, yeah, that's what I was telling you." And so we went to see him, and I remember him. I don't know where Mum was. I don't know if she was talking to the doctors or something like that. But I went in to see him, and I think there was only one of us that were allowed in the time. I can't remember. And he said, give me my wallet." I said, "What?" And he just dipped into it. He took all the money out of it and just gave it to me. And I was like, what are you doing? It's like, he said, "Thank you for getting me here." I was like, I I didn't. I don't. It's odd because Dad could never told me he loved me or stuff like that, and so this was obviously his way of thanking me. So, and a few days later, he came out of hospital and eventually went back to work, and then again it was the end of my degree. I'd finished all my exams. This was the summer, and it was very warm, very muggy, and there were days where it were really not quite nasty, and my mum had said about a week before this happened that your dad's been up again. He's having problems with his asthma, and he's not breathing well, but he's moaning and complaining. I was like, well, look, I'll deal with him, because even my mum was a nurse. She was very good at it. She could not, cope with Dad at all, and so I said, look, if he's bad again, get me up. I don't mind. I'll deal with him. The usual buffer between my parents. And so this one morning, and I heard my mum shout up to me. She said, so I went downstairs, and I could see he was really struggling again, a bit like the January event. And he was over the kitchen sink. He was almost trying to pull himself up. And I said, look, we're going to have to phone an ambulance, obviously, for what happened last time. And my mum was like really, not hysterical, but just like making the things much, much worse. And obviously with somebody with asthma, that's the last thing you should be doing. You should be calming, and you should be, telling them everything's going to be fine. So I phoned for the ambulance, explained exactly what I said. He's having a severe asthma attack. He needs to come. They need to come now. And I said to him, look, we'll sit him on this chair, and I'll go up and I'll get ready, because I just have my T-shirt on, Foxes, and stuff. I've just got out of bed. So I went upstairs, and I heard my mum screaming. And my mum never screams. She never screamed at all. She was never hysterical like that. So I ran straight back downstairs. She was screaming my name, and he'd gone. He'd got off the chair and was on the kitchen floor. He wasn't breathing. So obviously mum, trained nurse, CPR, trinidine, nothing. Sorry. So I went out and eventually I could see the ambulance. I said, please come now, please. They went in, and I can remember the sound of the defibrillator. So it's going beep, 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 beep. You could hear it. You could do that, and we were told to sit in the living room away from the kitchen, because obviously you couldn't stand there with paramedics doing this. And eventually a doctor arrived, and I was like, why is there a doctor? There's a doctor. Why? The paramedics are here. Why is the doctor here? And the doctor came into the living room, and my mum just said, he's dead, isn't he? And he said, yes, he died. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And the paramedics, the doctor said, we'll lay him out on the bed, and we're going to have to ring for the undertaker. And Mum was still in her night clothes. I was still half dressed. And obviously, Mum and Dad's bedroom, Mum said, well, I'll have to get changed. I'll have to get ready for the undertaker to come. And she said, well, I'm not going in there. I said, well, I'm not going in there on my own. Now, we were both like, so we'll have to go in together. We were holding each other and went into the bedroom where Dad was laid out. And the thing I very vividly remember, the blood. There's a special medical term for it. The blood had settled. Obviously, he died, and the blood settled down. There's a specific term, but I can't remember what it is. And we were like, and I just thought, and I said to her, he could tell he'd gone. If that makes any sense. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody who's passed away, especially so quickly. You could tell it just, that was it. That was, once the spirit is gone, you could see there was no life. So obviously we got the undertakers, and that was it. Funeral, usual. Telling his friends, who he used to socialize with, and he used to go to the pub with. That was the it was the worst bit, because the people, there were people older than me than I now, in their 50s and older, and telling them that he died was just like, it was terrible, because they just burst into tears. These are big grown men who and the worst again was telling him, his foster mother at the time, that because my mum said, I can't ring her, I can't tell her. So obviously, the usual, Philip's going to do everything, and so I had to do all these things. But he was 57 when he died, and he would have been 86 today. So, but anyway, it's 11 minutes. I've said, but thank you for listening to this story. I've told it 1,000 times. There was about 2 or 3 years before I actually could tell anybody that story. I've been, what is it, 20, what are we, 1994, so it's 28, 29 years now, is it? Yeah, we 30 years next year. Yeah, very odd, but I'm all right. So I just thought I'd share that story about the last few months of his life.